So, is there anything sexier that you can think of than selling vacuum parts and vacuum supplies? Well, if you're smart, that's where you might want to focus your effort. One of the things we like to do on the Amazon Fanatics program is find really smart, interesting business people who found their own niche and really exploit it to have the most success possible. And our guest today nailed that and then some. We're going to speak to Chad Rubin, who is the owner of Skubana.com, but also the Crucial Vacuum Company. And what's really interesting, he turned vacuum parts into a millions and millions of dollars success business and was named Inc. Magazine's fastest growing company. So first, Chad, I want to thank you so much for taking the time today to join us and welcome you to the program.
Thank you for having me on.
So it's actually a really fascinating story about how you got started, that it was kind of partially a family business. Fill us in, kind of tell the listeners and the viewers how your kind of entire experience began.
Well, it goes way back. My parents owned a vacuum store. I was growing up in New Jersey, and they were going out of business. They were always struggling to make ends meet, and I was like, you know what? I never want to become an entrepreneur. So I decided to go to school to UMass Amherst, studied finance, and went on to Wall Street for 3 years. During that time, they were actually going physically out of business. And I said, Mom, Dad, you guys need to be selling on the internet. Sell vacuum parts on the internet. And they said, I don't think anybody's going to be buying vacuum parts on the internet, Chad. So while they're going out of business, I decided, you know what, I'm going to buy your inventory. Bought it, it sold out, and that's really what got my start into internet retailing.
Now, what were the early steps that you learned that said, okay, this is working and this isn't, that would still be applicable today, you know, a few years later to sellers that wanted to just get started?
So a few things. Initially, I was just a reseller of vacuum parts. So I was buying from the OEMs or different distributors, and I decided that there's no need for a middleman. There's no layers needed. So I started to cut out the middleman, and now there's a wave of direct-to-consumer companies. You can even look at Dollar Shave Club that was just acquired for $1 billion that are actually cutting out the middleman, going as close to the factory as possible and getting as close to the consumer as possible and taking all that upside in the middle.
Well, the Dollar Shave Club is such an interesting model because what most people don't know is they don't create the razors. The razors come from a company called Dorco, which thankfully works for, not just your face, but also your head. And I used to be a Dollar Shave Club member, and then I found the factory. And so in essence, you became the front for the factory for all these vacuum parts, correct?
Exactly. And I started in vacuums, but I moved very quickly into a lot of other verticals. So we replicated the same success in other industries.
What are some of those industries that you went into?
Air purifier filters. I love coffee, so I combined my passion with coffee and started selling coffee filters on the internet, washable, reusable filters for coffee machines, cannabis grow room filters, pool filters, refrigerator filters, you name it.
And when you decide that you're going to get into one of these verticals, what are kind of the determining factors that you say, okay, that's a product I want to consider. That's something that I think my and the way I sell will really have success.
So here's the other thing that's going on right now is you have a lot of people moving and selling on Amazon. The next spatula off Alibaba, and then privately find niches and solve problems before coming out with the product. So I see that there's an overpriced niche, or I see that vacuum filters are not washable and reusable, and I started making washable, reusable filters to fit vacuum machines and selling them direct to consumer. So I'm solving problems, scratching an itch before just launching the next Silpat silicon mat on the internet.
Well, I mean, there's about 40,000 grow mats. There's about 22,000 garlic presses. So, and I'm pretty sure there's about 473 stretching bands that went on since yesterday. So those are probably things you want to avoid. But assuming you're not in a situation where you have the capital or the experience or the depth to become, in essence, the manufacturer's representative or to create the product, which is where you're at the stage now, but somebody who's got some experience with online sales, some experience with business, what products and how are the best ways to find the products that they then want to take and say, okay, let me start to create a business?
First of all, you don't have to have a lot of capital to start as a private label or even building a brand online, right? You can start an e-commerce site in seconds with Shopify or BigCommerce or a WooCommerce store. So you have to just find a niche that you can solve. So for me, here's how I would begin, and I talk about this in my book, Cheaper, Easier, Direct, but I would really start by Firstly, going after what I'm passionate about. So for me, I like CrossFit. I love CrossFit. My wife's a yoga instructor. For us, why do you have to buy CrossFit shorts or yoga pants that cost $120? There's sort of a bloated model there that's needed for disruption. And so it's, for me, I like to go after things I'm passionate about, but also I countlessly walk around in life thinking, why the hell does it have to be this way?
Right.
Or I say, that's bullshit, right? Sorry, pardon my French, but that's BS. Why does it have to be this way? Let me see if I can solve this problem and do it better, do it easier, and do it cheaper, and sell direct to consumer.
And was there a way, and I don't want to give you, too much of the secret sauce away, and some of this may be covered in your book, which I want to ask a few questions about that too, but how did you find the factories, or how did you find the places where you said, okay, I could do this better, cheaper, and easier?
So first I want to say there's no such thing as secrets anymore. Everything is public on the internet. So number one, before we even go into factories, finding problems is super easy if you look at Amazon reviews. And you have to weed through a lot of the BS reviews that are on there. But once you stop promoting your product and you start getting the real reviews, a lot of people are concerned about how many reviews they have, right? But they're not looking qualitatively of what the customer narrative is with the reviews. So I can go in and look at CrossFit shorts and people are constantly complaining about these shorts, or I can go into yoga pants, or I can go look at all these product listings, and you can literally, Amazon's like a super rich gold mine of information for you to actually extrapolate that information and crush it.
So I do want to talk about the book. What are kind of some of the things, what led you to write the book? And then what are kind of the main themes throughout the book that people would be interested in?
So what led me to write the book was I felt like there's a problem that's happening, another problem. The problem is that there's a lot of these quote unquote gurus or people who haven't really built businesses on Amazon that are actually trying to teach you how to build a business. And so yeah, they're building a great information business, but they actually haven't been there and done that. They haven't really been in the shoes. They're not a top 250 Amazon seller. Right. So I listen to these podcasts and I'll listen to some of these webinars and I'm just like nodding my head. And so that's really what led me to start the book. So I was like, okay, let me start a book. Let me write a book about the trials and tribulations of what I've gone through and how I can save people time, money, and hair loss.
Well, apparently I can only do 2 out of 3. So if you happen to have, the time and the money to save you, that'd be great. The hair loss, I'm not sure there's anything I can do at this stage, but I do look forward to reading the book, and we'll circle around and we'll pull out some excerpts for some of our future podcasts. But as far as the aspect of saving time and money, one of the things that people have been doing from that is subscription model, right? Where you don't have to go shopping again, where you're saving money because you're doing discounts. And a couple podcasts ago, we had Robbie Baxter on, who she's the author of the membership economy. And she wrote a whole book about how companies like Netflix and even Dollar Shave Club have a continual customer base. How important is that from an e-commerce perspective to continually know that every month or every 2 months or whatever it is, your product's already going to be shipping and paid for by a customer that's happy with your product?
So that's the reason why I believe it's super important to build a brand off of Amazon, because you can't directly target your Amazon customer base. It's against Amazon's terms of service. Right. But when you start building a business off Amazon, that's where you start getting recurring customers coming back and getting a lifetime value of the customer that's far higher than selling on Amazon today. So I love replenishables. I believe in replenishables. I sell replenishables all the time. And I have a massive subscription based on my own website that focuses on retargeting the customers that purchase from us. And a lot of them are on 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 12-month replenishment cycles with our products.
Now we're talking to Chad Rubin here. And again, Chad is the man behind the Crucial Vacuum Company and about 27 other product verticals, as well as the founder of Skubana.com. Chad, give us a little quick overview. Now, as a top 250 seller on Amazon, what separates the really, really elite sellers from the guys in the 2,000, 5,000, 7,000 range?
That's a really good question. There's probably a lot of things that separate us, but one of them is that you have certain sellers that just want a private label on Amazon. They come out with that Silpat mat, and they come out with the next sort of garlic press, and that's it. And the name of the brand is XYZ Brands.
Right.
So I much prefer building a brand across many different marketplaces, selling across, I sell in 17 different places. And I look at selling online like playing Monopoly. And I've spoken about this before. To win in Monopoly, you have to be on every piece of the board to win. Park Avenue, the utility, the railroad, and the second somebody lands on that, they buy. The same thing in e-commerce. People, where their eyeballs are, where their attention is, that's where the conversion is. So 40% of shoppers shop on Amazon today. That means 60% of people are shopping off Amazon. And I want to be everywhere where anybody's eyeballs are or where they point their mouse. So I think that's a big, big differentiator that many of these smaller guys that look, starting on Amazon is great, but I don't believe in finishing on Amazon. And I think that's what differentiates a number one in the space and a number 5 million in the space.
So I don't know if you ever saw Good Will Hunting, but there's a great scene in it where he's asked to name all of, and he rolls through all 12 of them, Mikey, Mickey, Ricky, Johnny, Jamie. Can you name these 17 platforms you're currently selling on?
Sure. Amazon, all the internationals. So Amazon CA, UK, Germany, MX, Canada, eBay, Sears, Rakuten, Newegg, Walmart, Jet, Price Falls, Shoxy, Wayfair, Overstock, Magento, Shopify, and I'm sure I'm missing some. But I think that's a super good start.
I'll be playing the role of mini driver today and being very impressed with that list that you just got that. You brought up with Walmart and Jet.com, and recently Walmart bought Jet.com, and what many are saying is going to be a attempt to take over, Amazon or take on Amazon head to head. But it's a different platform, and not, from a seller perspective, not everybody can get on there. You really have to be an elite seller to get on the Walmart platform. And now I imagine once they combine the platforms, or however they're going to do that, you have to be an elite seller. So what are the benefits of being on the Walmart and Jet platform? And as a seller, how can you put yourself in position to get there?
So firstly, I want to point out that I believe that Walmart and Jet are going to be separate.
Okay.
So Walmart's not going to just digest Jet. I believe Jet is a very strategic play for Walmart because Walmart comes with a certain cachet. So a kind of an unbanked customer sells on or buys from Walmart, very low price customer, and not a lot of millennials.
Right.
So Jet is a way for Walmart to sort of separate themselves and approach, like the people that shop at Target may not shop at Walmart. And so I believe the customer that shops at Target is Jet's customer. And so that was Walmart's way of getting involved and making a play and targeting millennials, which is the second biggest buying group in the United States right now. So to get onto those platforms, just to answer your question, you need to be doing at least $1 million in revenue to get onto those platforms. Now, if you know somebody, of course, it's always about who you know, not what you know. That helps expedite the process. But you apply and you take things from there. If you're a smaller seller, you're not getting on. If you're just an FBA seller, you're not going to get on because they don't want you to be a multi-channel fulfilled seller, fulfilling for using. You don't want to receive a box from Walmart or Jet in an Amazon box.
Right. Do you think at some point they'll lower that to maybe $500,000 and broaden the categories a bit?
I do think they're going to open it up, but I think they're being very strategic right now with the resources that they have. They're shaking what their mama gave them, right? They have only limited resources to bring in big clients. So let's go after, the top 20% of their clients is going to generate 80% of the marketplace revenues. Let's go after those clients first. I think that's their approach.
And as a top seller, where are you seeing your biggest wins? So, you're on all these platforms. Obviously, they can't all be equal. But as you get into the elite of the elite, where are the ones you go, that's my gold mine, that's my silver, that's my bronze?
So perfect. We're in the Olympics right now. So I think Amazon is really, really crowded, and there's a ton of lemmings that are selling and duplicating and copying products. So you always want to go where the puck is going. Right now, Walmart is a ripe, open field of opportunity that nobody is on. They have 800 sellers versus Amazon with 2 million. So Walmart, I would say, wins the gold. Jet gets the silver. And I think it's a combination of your own website along with international marketplace selling wins the bronze.
And as somebody who really, knows the space, again, we're talking to Chad Rubin, who is the founder of Skubana, and the man behind the Crucial Vacuum Company. As somebody who really knows the space, you're hearing more and more of brick and mortars closing up shops and going online. Earlier this month, Macy's announced another, a few dozen stores are going to close as they ramp up their online business. A lot of the sporting goods stores are closing down stores as they were going to go online. How much competition for a seller, an individual seller, a small company like you would run, is there from the big companies who have been doing brick and mortar so long? Is it more that they're just rushing there and they don't really know what they're doing, or is this true competition that if you're in any one of their categories, and you've mentioned CrossFit and yoga pants, that you have to be concerned?
I think the large companies, large corporate companies, have good reason to be concerned. Right now, there's so much disruption happening where these incumbents that have owned their space for decades have no idea how to navigate the wild, wild west, which I call e-commerce. They still have not figured it out since Al Gore invented the internet. So they're struggling to compete, they're struggling to figure it out, and Amazon has figured it out. And a lot of these cool direct-to-consumer companies have figured out how to play ball and how to beat these companies at their own game. So you look at a company like Dollar Shave Club, well, Gillette and Schick, it took them how long to figure it out? Right? So Dollar Shave Club owns 10% of the shaving blade market, and they did it in a very short period of time with guerrilla marketing. And just like they've done it, all these other places, all these other e-commerce stores are disrupting, like Casper for mattresses.
Right.
You can go on and on. Warby Parker with Luxottica. And these guys do not know how to figure it out. They don't know how to compete in this new age world with this additional E in commerce.
Well, what's so interesting is you mentioned the Dollar Shave Club again. So Gillette finally figures out that they should offer a subscription model, right? Mm-hmm. And they start sending out these emails. Hey, you can get a subscription. Okay, well, so I go check it out. And the subscription price for the 4 blades was actually $1 more expensive than I would have paid at CVS. And it was like 3 times the price of Dollar Shave Club. And you kind of want to walk up and flick them in the forehead and say, guys, I'm not going to pay you even more than I can get when I go into my local drugstore. And the whole point of a Dollar Shave Club is to get it cheaper. Now, I understand they are restricted by certain retailer agreements and some of the deals they already have in place. But aren't they shooting themselves in the foot when they take a brick and mortar approach to online sales?
So my mantra is cheaper, easier, direct, right? You said the number one thing for you is cheaper. But if you look at Gillette's shaving club that they started, it was absolute garbage.
Awful.
It was awful. The experience was awful. There was nobody to talk to. They didn't appeal to the millennial crowd. So another problem that you just pointed out is legacy incumbents have channel conflict. They're B2B business. They don't want to hurt what's already in the pipeline for decades.
Right.
So they can't be nimble to move right now. And that's why you have this tremendous amount of disruption and ripples happening in these industries.
And so what do the next 5 years look like for those brick and mortars as they attempt to take on some of the e-commerce behemoths and attempt to become e-commerce behemoths themselves?
The next 10 years is going to probably be a lot more ugly for retailers, for brick and mortar stores. They're going to have to try to figure out e-commerce, and if they can't do it, they're going to have to buy into it. That's exactly what Walmart did, right? They said, look, we're going to dedicate time and money to building up an e-commerce presence, and they're an internet retailer, top 500 company. I think they're number 4.
Right.
But they needed to figure out how do we capture more e-commerce revenue, and that was their acquisition with Jed. So I think JCPenney's, Nordstrom, Macy's, all these Nordstrom actually has a pretty good e-commerce operation actually out of the big brick and mortar stores, but all these companies are going to have to either figure out how to do it organically or they're going to have to buy.
It's going to be a very interesting marketplace because there's going to be guaranteed where somebody buys somebody and it just doesn't work, and it's going to become a case study of how not to do, what it is you think you want to do. And we're waiting for that. We hear rumors all the time. Well, this company's talking to this company. You go, I think you guys are doing a stretch. It's almost like during the .com boom of the late '90s, early 2000s, where companies were just buying anybody that was available. And you said, but you guys don't line up. Your technology doesn't line up. Your product doesn't line up. And I think that there's a risk you may see some of that. And it's really going to cost some of these great legacy brick and mortars maybe their entire, I I don't want to say business, but close to it.
For sure. But a lot of these companies need to change. Like JCPenney, they still haven't figured out life with Amazon. Now Amazon launched Amazon Basics to compete directly with the basics that JCPenney sells for a fraction of the cost, 2-day shipping.
Right. And one thing you talk about a lot, Amazon offers much better customer service. I do want to pivot to that because when you're dealing with subscription models and when you're dealing with, I can't actually go and talk to you in person, customer service is vital. What have you done to make sure that your customer service is as elite as your sales rank?
So, first of all, when I first got into e-commerce, I read Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness, which is all about customer delight. So what I decided to do right out of the gate was offer free shipping right on my website. So on top of that, I offered free returns right on my website. You can print a shipping label without even having to contact my customer support team. So we have a no hassle return policy, free shipping. We have live chat right on our website. You talk to a real human being. And I think that also is what differentiates a loser and a winner in the e-commerce space. You want to give people trust, which trust converts into the conversion.
And how many more sales? And I know there's really no way to say, it's been 11% or 22%, but of these sales that you've had, how much of it do you think comes from great customer service, and how much of their current subscription model comes from the fact that people know that they can trust you?
So I'll drop this nugget. 14% conversion rates on crucialvacuum.com. 14%. That is super, super high for e-commerce. Typical average conversion rates hover around 1%, 2%. So if you have the right customer delight in place, that will force the conversion.
Interesting. It's so funny because we see this done so poorly, and it's so easy to do customer. I shouldn't say it's easy. There's a way to do it right and a way to do the right thing. And a lot of the companies you see they don't want to put the effort in. Meanwhile, it costs them sales in the long run into the tens of thousands of dollars.
Yep. So I believe full-heartedly in putting your phone number right at the top of the page. I always have my phone number at the top. Anybody can give us a call during operation hours, and we will pick up and answer the phone, and you will talk to somebody who knows about vacuum parts. I can promise you that.
And for somebody who's not going to be just on Amazon, but is going to start their own Shopify store, their own e-commerce store, what would be kind of the 3 tips you would give them as far as, obviously you just mentioned, the phone number and the ability to get in contact, live chat, but as far as when they approach how they're going to build their customer service structure, are there 3 tips you would say, hey, these things you need to do if you're going to have any success at that?
So what I like to do is I like to look at companies that have a huge marketing budget and have already done testing and optimized it to figure it out. So I learn from others that have already done it. So I'm not trying to recreate the wheel. So I'll look at really cool e-commerce companies and see how they've structured their website. Like if you look at my mobile site right now, there's a 3 hamburger menu on the mobile responsive site. But instead, I've heard that if you put shop instead of the hamburger menu, it will increase your conversion dramatically. Turns, I think it's super important to be very upfront with the customers when they're making the purchase and show them how easy it is. If they make a mistake, they're not going to be penalized for it. When you shop on Amazon today, you know that if there's a problem, Amazon will stand behind that purchase 100%. A to Z guarantees. That's what they claim. And I think you need to adopt the same service level in your own business. So right away, no hassle returns, free shipping up front, print a return shipping label directly from your website, make it as easy as possible for the customer to feel comfortable buying from you.
And that's, look, the free returns and the shipping labels, that's the cost of doing business because it guarantees good word of mouth. It guarantees, you're not getting bad reviews out there for customer service. And how many times have you gone on Amazon, you looked at a product that's got decent reviews, and you check out the 1 or 2 stars, and all the complaints, or maybe not Amazon, it's a bad example because they handle it, but another e-commerce site where products are reviewed and the complaints are all customer service. And you think that's a great product, but I don't want to work with this company. And you would think that more companies would say, oh, well, here's, we'll do it better. But for whatever reason, they just don't.
Live chat is super important. A CRM software where you can have macros set up to respond to customers in at least 4-hour timeframes. I think you should be responding in 4 hours, nothing more than 4 hours, maybe 6. So all those things help with conversion rates and also help with people promoting your product online, right? Referring friends.
Well, we're talking with Chad Rubin here on the Amazon Fanatic program, and we just have a couple minutes left with Chad. Chad, you just brought up software and CRM management. I want to talk a little bit about Skubana. What is it? Why do people need it? And not to get into too much of an advertisement here, but just kind of an overview of what the program is and what will it give people who want to be in this e-commerce world an advantage?
So the pain point where it comes from is I'm a multi-marketplace seller, like I mentioned, on all these channels. And in the old decade, you needed to piece together all these different softwares to run your business. You need a shipping software, you need an inventory software, you need an FBA software, you need an accounting software, and you still need spreadsheets. So, and they take a percentage of revenue on top of it. So instead, what we did was we combined everything into a central nervous system, one place that unifies your entire operation for multi-marketplace sellers. So Skubana, the what that we do, we print any way you want to fulfill, print shipping labels, connect to an outsourced warehouse, drop ship, multi-channel fulfillment, inventory, purchase orders, but that's the what. The why. Why we exist is because we unify everything, and now you have the most incredible holy grail of analytics to act on. In business intelligence that you've never seen before. As surgical as your shipping, what you pay for a shipping label, ports in, and you can see all your SKUs across all your channels and what you sell and how much you're making. Profit.
So you would say using the software hasn't just saved you money, it's also made you money.
Not only that, it's automated my entire business. I run a $10 million business with one employee and this software.
Wow.
That's unheard of.
Wow.
Yep.
And how much free time do you have?
0. Because I run the software now. I filled it up, right? You take water out of the bucket and you fill it up with other great things.
All right. What other softwares would you recommend? And there's a ton of technology, a ton of apps out there. We see some software selling for $2,500, some for $25 a month, and much like you talked about with some of the programs where you're not sure if they're legitimate or not. Are there softwares you would look at and say, I recommend this, or stay away from that?
So first of all, Skubana is really built for high volume sellers, medium to high volume merchants. I'm just being very honest about that. If you want to expand, that's the software for you. You want to be in the e-commerce world, you need to be concerned about one-trick ponies, people that just do one thing. Because when you only do one thing or you only integrate to one channel, it's your glass ceiling. You can't bust through the ceiling because they don't work with anything else in the ecosystem. They don't work with Jet. They don't work with Walmart. So you need to pick your software very correctly. Other softwares that I use to run my business, I use Trello. I'm sure you're familiar. For project management and for delegation. It's a great delegation tool. I use Boomerang all the time to get to a zero inbox. Those are tools that I use on a daily basis that I really support and stand behind.
From a seller standpoint on Amazon, are there softwares? I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about Jungle Scout and Merchant Words and things like that. Are there any that obviously you're at the stage now as an elite seller, you're a little bit above that, but from a standpoint of somebody's, reading your book and they want to get started, where are there softwares you like in the kind of more beginner phase?
Sure. I think one software that nobody is talking about right now, and I talk about it very heavy in my book, is a sort of a software that shows you the bill of lading. You can see what's coming into this country and where it's coming from. So a software like Import Genius or Panjiva, Panjiva, and talk about how to extrapolate information and pull out the bill of lading from that to figure out where you should be sourcing product from, I think is a big win that nobody's talking about.
Fascinating. Well, Chad, I really, really appreciate your time today. It's been wonderful to have you, very educational. I want to recommend everybody get his book. You can check out his link, the link to the book in the comments below and in the write-up, because we're certainly going to want to send you there. And interestingly enough, we'll probably send you to Amazon. But it may be on one of his 17 other platforms.
It's a cheaper, easier direct.
And obviously, is there any other things before we let you go, Chad, that we should touch upon for our listeners from your experiences of either things they should always do or things they should never do?
I think my one word of advice is really looking at the vulnerabilities around your business and around your life and see how you can scratch those itches. And that's just how I've run my life and how I've run my business. So like anytime I notice a problem or an issue, I take care of it. I try to solve that issue right away. And I think that's what has been a tremendous asset for me to be successful.
You've had a ton of success. We wish you nothing but a ton of future success. And hopefully with all the automation, you'll find some time to take some time off and enjoy all the success.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great night, a great weekend, and thank you so much for coming on the show.